you've got a lot of people today saying that Marco Rubio should be charged with lying to Congress. Right? Because today, you had our Secretary of State testifying before Congress for the first time since Trump launched his war in Iran. And despite the fact that he hasn't actually given public testimony on Trump's war until now, Rubio's appearance today, it's actually part of a marathon week where he's set to appear before 4 different committees to defend the administration's nearly $36 billion budget request for his agency. But because his first appearance in this circuit was in front of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, his testimony covered a number of things that concern the State Department, including Ebola, China, Venezuela, Russia's war on Ukraine, AI, and much, much more. But unsurprisingly, one of the biggest areas of focus was Iran, especially when the Democrats got their chance to ask questions. And right off the bat, you had Rubio coming out swinging, arguing that Trump's war with Iran, it's been a sweeping success in destroying what he described as the conventional shield of weapons that Iran's been trying to build up to protect their nuclear program.
Operation Epic Fury, some of you didn't like it, some of you did, was highly successful in achieving its military objectives, which is dramatically reducing the defense industrial base of Iran. The ability to build these missiles and to build these drones, especially the missiles program, substantially degraded. But nonetheless, even their drone building capability has been eroded. Today, there is no Iranian Navy. There is no such thing. There's a bunch of Boston whalers with machine guns on them, but there is no Navy.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack here, but basically every single claim he made there is wrong. First of all, it's just simply not true that Epic Fury has achieved its objectives. I mean, for one thing, those objectives have been a moving target since the get-go, with Rubio and others in the administration repeatedly offering competing reasons for the war, only for Trump to then turn around and say something totally different. But then also, when you consider the overlapping objectives that have come out, like destroying Iran's conventional weapons shield, ending its nuclear ambitions, and incapacitating its Navy, he's still way off base. As the Center for American Progress, aka CAP, explained, 13 weeks into what was supposed to be a 4 to 6 week war and with no end clearly in sight, none have been fully achieved, and any marginal progress is subject to rapid reversal. Right on the nuclear question, the International Atomic Energy Agency estimates that Iran still has 972 pounds of uranium that is enriched up to 60% purity, which is just a step from weapons grade levels at 90%. And then regarding conventional weapons, classified US intelligence assessments and military analysis that's been leaked to the media, they've shown that Iran's retained a major portion of their pre-war capabilities. According to one report, Iran still has roughly 70% of its mobile launchers and has been able to retain about 70% of its pre-war missile stockpile. And they've also regained access to around 90% of its underground missile storage and launch facilities. But then also, beyond that, Iran's effective use of drones, it's shown that they can still effectively target enemies in the region. And then when it comes to the Navy, it is true that it has been destroyed in a traditional sense, but as Cap explains, Iran's ability to improvise has ensured that it retains a naval presence in the Persian Gulf, noting that Iran's still been able to mine waterways using fast attack craft and commercial vessels, which it's also utilized to launch drones against ships in the Gulf, and then also adding, Iran may not possess a formal Navy, but it clearly has naval power, rendering US success in this domain more than a little hollow. And then outside of military goals, experts also say that Trump's war, it's done very little to stop Iran's regional proxy network. If anything, it's just emboldened them, nor has it successfully overthrown the authoritarian regime. Right? Similar to the proxy groups, Trump's actions in Iran, they're likely to have a Hydra-like effect. You cut off one head, 3 more vicious and dangerous ones, they grow back in its place. Then, of course, there's the fact that the Strait of Hormuz is literally still closed and the American people, like the rest of the world, are facing higher costs from the economic disruption. But also the difference is that other countries have refused to get drawn into Trump's pointless war, but American taxpayers, they're being forced to pay for it. And it's a pretty fucking big price tag. Moody's just estimated that the war has so far cost US families $100 billion. But despite all that, it looked like Rubio just kind of repeatedly gaslit Americans, even saying at one point that the war was over.
Mr. Rubio, you keep telling us how we're winning this war. The president keeps saying,
well, the war's over
completely
now.
Annihilated. The war is not over. And yet the American people see how we're losing at the pump and with their costs, and yet this thing still hasn't been resolved. Every day he tweets out, oh, we've obliterated them, we've annihilated them, they're going to surrender. But yet we still find ourselves spending billions of dollars a week.
To Booker's point there, it does honestly feel kind of insane for Rubio to try to convince the American people that the war is over when you're still suffering financially because of Trump's short-sighted impulsivity. And that's actually something that was echoed by Senator Chris Van Hollen in this clip that's been getting some traction online.
This is your first public hearing since President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu launched an illegal war against Iran. Netanyahu said he's been waiting 40 years to do this. Turns out he finally found a president who was both stupid and reckless enough to join him. The war has killed 14 American service members, wounded hundreds more, and killed thousands of civilians. It's driving up the price of gas, food, and much more. Trump obviously doesn't care. He called high gas prices peanuts and said, I don't think about Americans' financial situation. That's from the President of the United States. And all for what? Let's face it, Mr. Secretary, the Trump foreign policy has become a dumpster fire.
But also, Rubio's insistence that America's triumphed, it became even more confusing because he also said that the administration was getting closer to an agreement on key aspects of a peace deal, which of course implies that the war is not actually over. Though notably, that's kind of the same thing we've been hearing from the administration for the last 90 plus days.
There is the prospect before us, which could happen today, it could happen tomorrow, it could happen next week, that for the first time, certainly in my memory, they have agreed to negotiate aspects of their nuclear program that just a month ago, or just a year ago, they were refusing to even mention, much less enter into discussions about. That is not a guarantee that ultimately it will lead to a deal that's acceptable to the Senate or acceptable to the American people. But we'll be able to engage them in a process to truly test the proposition of how far they're willing to go.
But very notably here, Iranian media reported just yesterday that Tehran had suspended talks with the United States over Israel's recent escalating attacks on Lebanon. At the same time, you had Trump contradicting himself, telling reporters yesterday that he couldn't care less if talks are over because they've taken too long and have become very boring. His words. But then in a Truth Social post literally the same day, he claimed that the talks are back on and continuing at a rapid pace. And unfortunately, we live in a world where people are genuinely perplexed of who to trust here, the President of the United States or Iranian media. Somehow we now live in a world where that has actually become a real toughie. And then on the note of negotiations, you might have seen this clip going viral where you had Senator Jackie Rosen questioning Rubio about his whereabouts during high-stakes talks in Pakistan.
I'd like to remind the American people that as the Secretary of State, your main duty as America's chief diplomat is to maintain our relations with foreign nations. This is why I was shocked to see that you were at a party with President Trump in Miami instead of accompanying Vice President Vance to Pakistan for negotiations.
What party was I at? I was at a party?
It's publicly reported, and there's photos there.
But what party? No, but you're going to say that. I'm going to answer it. I'm going to answer that question because that's an absurd statement. I was not at a party.
If I finish my paragraph, he can answer.
People are going to slander me. I'm going to answer it.
Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, both of whom were never confirmed by this body to be America's diplomats, accompanied the Vice President in the negotiations. We confirmed you to be our Secretary of State. We confirmed you to be in the negotiations that are happening. And it's just unthinkable to me that you are missing high-stakes negotiations or that you're not involved.
I was not at a party. Where I was is next to the president. Because in the midst of those negotiations, I was in communications with them. I know your staff wrote up this cute statement for your TikTok video, but it's not true, and it's not real. That's not what happened.
Right now, the event that Rosen's referring to there is a UFC fight that Rubio attended with Trump, while others were at the negotiations in Pakistan. So you had a lot of people online sharing photos from the fight, noting that it really didn't look like Rubio and Trump were doing too much high-level national security work. And based on how, let's say, zooted he looks in those photos, we should all kind of maybe just pray to God that he wasn't actually doing any important work at that fight. But on the note of accountability, we also saw many Democrats grilling Rubio on the Trump administration's total failure to properly inform Congress about the actions that it's taken in this war or get their consent. And there, you had Senator Tim Kaine noting that the administration is giving Congress opinions from the Office of Legal Counsel that justify 2 recent military actions, right, including the capture of Maduro, but it hasn't done the same for the Iran war.
We're 92 days into a war against Iran, and the administration will not let Congress look at the OLC legal opinion justifying the war. You know what kind of thinking we do. If you've showed us the legal rationale for 2 wars and you won't show us the legal rationale for the third, is there something in the rationale they don't want us to see? Is there a dissenting opinion that says it's not legal? Are there conditions like you can't strike civilian infrastructure like schools and bridges? Are there factual assertions like the war will be over in 2 days or Iran will never close the Straits of Hormuz?
While this first testimony that Rubio is giving, it's certainly, an important landmark in the ongoing conflict, it really ended up kind of being just more of the same. What appears to be lying and gaslighting from an administration that has entered into an illegal war that no one wants, and clearly they do not give a shit about how it impacts the American people. That said, it will be interesting to see what goes down in the other Rubio hearings, one of which is actually happening in the House as I'm recording this. Sometimes I feel like we just need to turn this into a 4-hour live show and then clip it.